My daughter slammed her wine glass on the picnic table and shouted, "You owe me the beach house." The music stopped. Forks froze mid-air. A few guests laughed. Most didn't. I stared at her, confused. She had never said anything like this. Then her husband stepped forward and handed me a folded paper. It had my name on it. But what they didn't know, I still held the original deed. Who forged my signature? When? And why here, in front of everyone? I hadn't moved from my spot on the porch, even after everyone left the barbecue early. A hush had fallen over the coastline, but the silence wasn't peace, it was shame hanging in the sea air. I was folding my towel, the one with my wife's initials still stitched in the corner, when she kicked it out of my hand. "You don't need this anymore, old man," she spat, dropping her sunglasses on the patio table like she owned it. The towel hit the sand. She didn't bend to pick it up. I blinked at her, trying to understand the girl in front of me. This wasn't the child I raised. This was someone else, calculating, cruel, cornered behind oversized designer shades. "I built this place," I said, softly. "Every tile. Every gatepost. With your mother. And now you'll pass it down," she replied, smiling without her eyes. "Which is what we're doing. Mark and I have everything in place." Mark stepped through the sliding doors like he'd been waiting for his cue. He held a manila envelope like a courtroom exhibit. "It's better this way, Pops," he said. "You're retired. This place is just too much upkeep. Too big for one man." "I never asked for your help," I said. He laughed under his breath. "No, but now we're offering it. Think of it as a legacy transfer. The lawyers already started the process. You'll get a tidy compensation." "I don't want a tidy compensation," I snapped. There was a pause. A faint breeze rolled in, stirring the hanging chimes my wife hung by the kitchen window 15 summers ago. They sang like they were warning me. Mark placed the envelope on the patio table. "You might want to review that," he said. I didn't move. My daughter picked up the envelope and slid out a set of crisp, printed pages. The top one had my name, the property's name, and a notarization date, yesterday. "You signed it," she said coolly. "Or do you not remember that? I never saw this before in my life." She smirked, reached for her purse, and pulled out a folded sheet. "Then maybe you forgot this too." It was a letter. My handwriting. My signature. A promise, dated a year ago, stating she would receive the main beach house, in full and final trust. I looked at it. It was my handwriting, but it wasn't my wording. I glanced at the keychain still hanging on the edge of the outdoor bar, a miniature replica of the house's iron gate. I kept it there for guests to admire, as a joke, "Welcome to paradise, if you can find the key." My daughter followed my gaze. "That's decorative, Dad," she said. "The real keys are being duplicated tomorrow. And we'll need you out before the new AC unit is installed Friday." "You mean, you're kicking me out?" Mark stepped in again. "We're transitioning ownership. There's no need to be dramatic." "And where do I go?" I asked. "You've still got your cabin upstate," she said. "And the pension Mom left." "Which you already borrowed against," I said coldly. She looked away, just for a second. "A tell." The silence cracked wide open. Seagulls overhead. Nothing else. Mark leaned in and tapped the document. "This doesn't have to be ugly. But if you contest it, there are witnesses. There's a lawyer on record. And we'll take it to court." He didn't know I'd already called a lawyer. Didn't know I'd asked for a full audit last week. Something had felt off when I saw the utility bills spike despite being the only one here. My daughter sat back down and crossed her legs. "We just want what's fair," she said. "You're not being erased, Dad. You'll always be part of this place, in spirit. I picked up the keychain and turned it over in my hand. You think this is about bricks and a beach view? Of course not, she said. It's about legacy. Family. And doing what's right. I stood. No. It's about control. Her smile dropped. I stepped past them both, down the steps into the sand, the towel still crumpled by the chair leg. I didn't pick it up either. They didn't follow me. The sky was turning orange, the sun dipping just enough to light the gate in a burnt shimmer, the same gate I welded with my own hands. I opened the side garage. Inside was my wife's old filing cabinet. I dug through the bottom drawer and pulled out the folder she'd labeled Final Instructions. Inside, the real deed, untouched, unsigned, still in my name. I ran my thumb across the seal. This game wasn't over. They didn't know how much I remembered. Or what I still owned. My phone buzzed, my lawyer texted, "They're moving fast. You need to see this. Now." I woke before dawn. Not from rest, but from something colder, displacement. You can always tell when a house no longer belongs to you. It creaks different. Breaths feel monitored. And you notice shoes that aren't yours by the door. Mark was already up. Not in the kitchen. Not in the den. He stood in the hallway between my bedroom and the study. Folder in one hand. Coffee in the other. "This has gone far enough," he said, before I could ask why he was blocking my way. "It's not your house," I said. "It will be by noon." He held up the folder and opened it like a magician about to do a cheap trick. Inside, updated trust documents, a power of attorney form, and a transfer of property title, blank signature line at the bottom. "You sign today. We file it. You move out by end of the week. Clean transition. No drama." I didn't respond. I made pancakes, my daughter called from the kitchen. "Dad? Don't be stubborn." "She called the lawyer already," Mark added. "If you don't sign, she's filing a suit for mismanagement. Financial elder abuse." I laughed, short, bitter. "She forged my name yesterday, and now I'm the abuser?" "Think of the optics," he said. Then he said it. "Sign it or get out. No more diplomacy. No more disguise. Just the cold weight of force." This wasn't a request. It was the final nail. I stepped past him and walked out the front door, barefoot, no jacket. Morning wind slapped my skin awake. I needed fresh air before I said something that would ruin whatever part of me hadn't already cracked. That's when I heard them whispering. Two neighbors, Evelyn and Mr. Richter, walking their dogs across the street. "She's making him leave," Evelyn whispered. "Already?" Richter said. "I heard she's putting it on Airbnb." They stopped when they saw me. Evelyn offered a weak wave. Richter looked away. The whole neighborhood knew. The barbecue. The argument. The signed letter. They were all talking. And nobody had called to check if I was okay. I stepped back inside, face blank. In the kitchen, my daughter was setting plates. Smiling like nothing happened. Like betrayal came with syrup. "I made the blueberry ones," she said. "Don't eat that," I said. She froze. "Excuse me?" I said, "Don't eat that," I repeated. "I'm not sitting across a table from someone who used my wife's name to gut our family's legacy." Her face dropped. Then came the fury. "She wanted me to have this house," she screamed. "No," I said. "She wanted you to visit it. Not steal it." She threw down her fork. Mark appeared behind her, silent, defensive. The kitchen suddenly felt like a courtroom again, me on trial, them smug and armed with paperwork. I turned to the side door and walked out. Drove straight to Beck's Diner, our local place. Town gossip central. I needed coffee. Maybe answers. Maybe just a breath. The moment I walked in, all eyes shifted. Forks paused. Napkins froze. I knew the look. Whispers trailed behind me. That's him. Thought she inherited it already? Must have been ugly at the party. I sat at the counter. Cheryl, the waitress who used to call me Sugar, slid me a mug without a word. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't smile. Just placed the check upside down. I flipped it over. A note scribbled in red pen. They already changed the mailing address on the house tax bill. The betrayal wasn't just private anymore. It had crossed into the bloodstream of the town. Someone cleared their throat behind me. A man in a suit. I turned. It was Jim Stanford, local real estate agent, tie too tight for comfort. Hey, I just wanted to say, your daughter's got a good eye. She called me last week to get it appraised. Without my consent? I asked. He paused. Looked confused. She said she was the new owner. Signed paperwork and all. I left the mug full. Back home, I walked in through the garage. The keychain, that miniature gate replica, was missing from the hook by the door. Gone. I marched upstairs. My office. Nothing. Drawer? Empty. File cabinet? The original deed was still there, but now, the folder next to it, the one holding the trust revisions from 3 years ago, was missing. They were building a case. Piece by piece. Day by day. But they made one mistake, they thought I'd go down quietly. I pulled out my phone. Called my lawyer. I'm ready to fight. He didn't even say hello first. Just replied, they're setting up a second escrow under your name. We need to move, today. You're not going to believe who co-signed the second deed transfer. Check your email now. You co-signed this account back in 2014, sir. Her name was added. The bank had a smell to it, sterile, cold, like every dream ever buried in paperwork. I hadn't been here in years. Not since I first set up the property tax autopay. The clerk wore a red blazer and a polite expression that didn't reach her eyes. I'm here to check the escrow account linked to my beach house, I said. Account holder name? I gave her mine. She tapped the keyboard, clicked twice, then paused. Her eyes flicked to the screen. Back to me. Is something wrong? I asked. She leaned in slightly. You co-signed this account back in 2014, sir. Her name was added. Whose? She turned the screen, just enough for me to see. My daughter's name. Right there under mine. With co-access privileges. And the balance? 0. I felt the air leave my lungs. That account had $218,000 last I checked. She nodded, not looking at me. Withdrawals were made in 4 transactions over the last 6 months. 4. Steady. Planned. Not desperation. Strategy. She pulled up the itemized list. Mortgage advance. Renovation fees. Lawyer retainer. Holding deposit for a second property. The last line made me freeze. Deposit sent to Ocean Vista Title Office, House #447A. House 447A wasn't mine. House 447A was across the bluff, the other beach property. The one I bought in my late wife's name before she passed. Left untouched. Not even landscaped. I kept it as it was the day she last saw it, curtains still packed in boxes. They had used that money to stake a claim in a property they didn't own. They were building a kingdom on my wife's grave. I stood up too fast. The room tilted. The keychain in my pocket jabbed against my thigh. I grabbed it, just to feel something solid. It used to hang next to her keys. Now it was the last anchor I had. "Print me everything," I said. "And flag that account. Right now." The clerk hesitated. "I can't, without her consent." "You're looking at the original account holder," I barked. "Flag it. Or you'll be testifying in court about how you handed over my legacy like candy." She printed. I walked out of that bank like a man on fire. But I didn't go home. I went to the cliff. Parked by the edge, looking down at house 447A. It looked small from here, hidden behind dunes and sea grass. I remembered laying its foundation with my wife, her laughter echoing in the unfinished halls. We'd planned to retire there, away from noise. That dream died with her. But I still held it sacred. Until now. I dialed Alan, my lawyer. "They've tapped the other property," I said. A pause. "I thought that deed was sealed," he said. It was. "She doesn't know it was never filed in her name. She just assumed." Alan sighed. "They're not just greedy. They're confident." "No," I said. "They're arrogant." Back home, I found them on the patio, Mark and my daughter, sipping iced tea like nothing had happened. "You used college fund money to buy a second house?" I asked calmly. Mark blinked. She sat up straighter. "What are you talking about?" "The escrow," I said. "The one you thought I wouldn't check." Her face went pale. "That money wasn't meant for you," I said. "It was to maintain the property. To honor your mother's memory. And you drained it." Mark stood. "You have no proof." I tossed the printouts on the table. She picked them up. Hands trembling. "Dad, this wasn't theft. We were protecting your assets. You were gutting them. You weren't even using the other house," she shouted. "That wasn't the point," I said. "It wasn't about use. It was about respect." She opened her mouth to argue. Then stopped. Mark stepped between us. "We'll pay it back." "With what?" I asked. "You're already living off my retirement." No response. "I want my house key back," I said. She shook her head. "It's our home now." "Then give me the keychain," I said, holding out my hand. Mark scoffed. "It's just a symbol. Who cares?" I smiled faintly. "That's exactly why it matters." He hesitated. Then pulled it from his pocket. It was scratched. Bent. Rust on the loop. He dropped it into my palm like trash. I looked at the warped miniature of the house gate, the gate I built with my bare hands. My phone buzzed again. Alan texted, "We found something in the escrow trail. You're not the only victim. Meet me at the lawyer's office. Now." The folder Alan slid across the desk didn't just have my name, it had 3 others I'd never seen before. Alan's office sat behind a strip mall, cheap rent, low profile, exactly how he liked it. But inside, it looked like a war room. Files stacked like sandbags, folders color-coded, and on the center desk, a single manila envelope labeled in black ink, "Client Escrow Irregularities." He didn't say hello. Just pushed the folder toward me. "You need to see this," he said. I flipped it open. The first document was the escrow trail, withdrawals, account transfers, fees. But it wasn't just my daughter. There were 3 other names, each connected to the same secondary escrow account. One was her friend from college. One was her husband's business partner. And one was a corporate shell owned by my late wife's former nurse. Why would my wife's nurse be listed here? Alan adjusted his glasses. "Because your daughter used her as a proxy on the second beach house." And that woman listed herself as a trustee liaison in legal filings. I stared. She's spreading ownership, I said. Diluting the claim. Exactly, Alan replied. Each of them gets a 24% stake. Your daughter keeps 28%. You get nothing. And yet it's still in my name? For now. Alan pointed to the last document in the folder. A drafted motion to declare me legally incompetent. She's applying for financial guardianship? I said. He nodded. She's claiming early cognitive decline. That you've forgotten payments. Repeated statements. Mismanaged funds. If it goes through, you'll lose control of everything. She's building a noose, I muttered. Alan leaned in. Unless we cut the rope first. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, a young couple pushed a stroller. 2 kids ran toward the corner store. Normal life. Ordinary people. I used to be one of them. Then I built something. And now my own child was tearing it down with a smile. I reached into my coat pocket. Pulled out the keychain. Still rusted. Still bent from Mark's careless hands. Alan watched me spin it slowly. That thing going to save you? He asked. No, I said. But it's going to remind me what I built. He smiled. Then let's start building your defense. We got to work. Step 1, freeze the second escrow. Alan filed a motion for a forensic review, flagging all 4 names involved in the transfers. Step 2, contact the original notary who witnessed the signature on the promise letter my daughter waved around at the barbecue. I called the number listed. Sorry, the man on the other end said. I never notarized anything for a Morgan Harper. Not in the last 2 years. I recorded the call. Sent it to Alan. Proof of forgery. And yet, back home, things looked normal. Which only made it worse. My daughter was lounging on the deck, reading a real estate brochure. Mark was on the phone, talking numbers, capital, renovation, staging. They were already selling what wasn't theirs. You're selling the house? I asked from the sliding door. Mark put his phone down. Might as well be smart about it, he said. Market's up. We can buy something smaller. Reinvest. We? I asked. He didn't answer. My daughter didn't even look up. She just said, "You don't need it anymore, Dad. And if you keep interfering, we'll have no choice but to escalate." I stepped forward. What's left to escalate? You forged documents. Stole from your own blood. Hijacked a house your mother died loving. And now you want me to be grateful you're flipping it for profit? Silence. Until she said, "You're not the victim here." I walked away. Back inside, I unlocked the drawer in my study. Pulled out the photo of the gate construction. There I was, 30 years younger, sweat-soaked, welding mask lifted, hands on the unfinished arch. My wife stood behind me, holding iced tea. That gate? Still stood today. Still framed every photo on the realtor's site. I turned over the picture. And taped the keychain to the back. I wasn't letting it vanish into nostalgia. It was now evidence. Symbol. Trigger. Then my phone rang again. Alan. They filed, he said. What? The incompetency motion. This morning. Under seal. My stomach dropped. What now? Now, he said. Now we fight. Alan added, and I found something in the nurse's file. Something about your wife's will. You're not going to like it. Before we continue, has your own child ever turned on you for something you built with love? Drop your story below. She dropped the legal envelope in front of the pastor like it was a birthday card. The chapel was quiet. Just the creak of pews and the soft rustle of hymn books. Sunday morning light spilled through the stained glass like judgment. I sat on the far right bench, my usual spot, third from the back. The one my wife loved best. The pastor had just begun his welcome when my daughter stood up. Dress pressed, smile polite, holding a white envelope. "I'd like to share something today," she said sweetly. I froze. She walked to the front with the confidence of a saint and placed the envelope on the pulpit. "This is the finalized declaration of trust," she said. "My father and I have agreed to transfer the beach properties under my name, in line with our family legacy." Whispers erupted immediately. I stood. "No," I said. "We didn't agree to anything." She smiled like a pageant queen caught mid-blink. "Dad, don't do this." The pastor looked confused. "Is this a private matter?" he asked, gently. She waved her hand. "It's just paperwork. Nothing scandalous." A man in the second row leaned toward his wife. "Did he finally retire?" "No," I said, loudly. "They forged it." Gasps now. Audible. "Real. Those documents were never signed by me," I added. She used a nurse from my wife's final care team as a proxy. Now everyone was staring. Even the pastor backed away slightly from the envelope. "You're making a scene," she hissed. "You chose the scene," I replied. She leaned closer, voice like ice. "It's just paper, Dad. You're the one clinging to symbols." I pulled out the keychain, still taped to the back of the photo I now kept folded in my breast pocket. "This paper held promises," I said. "And this key held trust." The congregation wasn't quiet anymore. Whispers turned to murmurs. People shifted uncomfortably. Even Evelyn, the neighbor from across the street, muttered, "Didn't he build that house for his wife?" The pastor stepped in. "I think we need to pause," he said. "This isn't the place." "No," I said. "It's exactly the place. Because she used God's house to stage a lie." My daughter's hands trembled. "Don't do this," she whispered. "Why not?" I said. "Is the truth inconvenient?" Someone in the back stood up, Tom Sanders, the town's only accountant. "Did you really withdraw the property fund money?" he asked her. I had permission," she stammered. "You co-signed when you were 18. That doesn't mean what you think it does." The pastor finally closed the envelope and placed it behind the pulpit. "We will review this privately." The service didn't resume. People filed out slowly. Heads turned. No one spoke to me directly, but a few nodded. A few finally looked me in the eye. Outside the chapel, the sunlight felt heavier. My daughter followed me down the front steps. "You humiliated me," she snapped. "No," I said. "You humiliated yourself." Mark appeared from around the corner, breathless, like he'd been listening in. "We can fix this," he said. "Let's talk, just us." "I'm not interested in US," I replied. "I'm interested in truth." He scowled. "You're going to lose everything if you fight this. They'll drag your name through court." I held up the keychain, still clutched in my palm. "You see this gate?" I asked. Every bar, every hinge, I welded it. I bled for it. "And I'll burn it down before I hand it over to thieves." He laughed, nervous. "You wouldn't." My voice went cold. "Try me." I walked away before either of them could say another word. Back home, I placed the photo with the keychain on my desk. Opened a drawer. Pulled out a small wooden box, my wife's handwriting on the lid, "If anything ever goes wrong, start here." Inside? A flash drive. I plugged it into my laptop. Audio files. Scans. Voice memos. One labeled, Revised Will, for Alan. My wife hadn't trusted our daughter either. She'd updated her will months before she died, never filed it through standard channels. Left it hidden. To be found by someone who actually remembered what family meant. I hit play. Her voice came through, steady, loving, but firm. If you're hearing this, it means something's gone wrong. The second house was never meant to pass through blood. Only through intent. Give it to someone who understands legacy. Not entitlement. Tears welled in my eyes. Not from sadness, but from clarity. My wife hadn't just warned me. She'd armed me. I emailed the file to Alan immediately. Then, I picked up the phone and called the Veterans Housing Board. I had a new plan. But before I could act, I got another message. This one from Cheryl, the waitress at the diner. You need to see this. Mark was here with a buyer. They said the sale's closing in a week. With or without you. I grabbed my jacket, the photo, and the keychain, because if they were selling my house behind my back, I was about to crash the deal in person. The title office smelled like fresh ink and stale betrayal, and I wasn't there to smile. The receptionist looked nervous when she saw me. Sir, they're not here yet, she said. Your daughter said you wouldn't be attending. I placed the folder on the desk. I'm not here to attend, I said. I'm here to stop. I walked past her, straight into the small glass-walled conference room where the closing was scheduled. On the table, a stack of legal forms, freshly printed. Escrow folder open. My name still listed as grantor. The chair creaked as I sat down. 10 minutes later, Mark strutted in, tie crooked, phone in hand. He stopped cold. What are you doing here? I slid the original deed across the table, along with a notarized motion to freeze the transaction. You forgot one detail, I said. His jaw tightened. That's not valid. You already. I never signed the final transfer, I cut in. And you used fraudulent documents to begin this process. That escrow is now under legal review. He looked at the receptionist who'd followed him in. She didn't say a word. Just slowly stepped back. He slammed his palm on the table. You can't pull this. I already did. I turned to the escrow officer who had just entered, an older woman named Darlene, who'd known me for years. This property was never legally transferred, I said. They faked my signature on preliminary documents, and the supposed power of attorney doesn't exist. Mark stammered, we have an email thread. That'll be nice to explain in court, I said. But today? You're not walking out of here with anything. Darlene reviewed the documents I brought. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she simply said, I'll be pausing the process until further notice. We'll investigate ownership conflicts immediately. Mark's face twisted. You're making a mistake. No, I said. I'm correcting one. He stormed out. I stayed behind. Darlene gently pushed the forms back toward me. You really built this place, didn't you? She asked. I nodded. With my wife. Every nail. She gave me a sad smile. I remember when she brought muffins for the staff. Said it was your anniversary. I clenched the keychain in my pocket, still dented, but now polished. I'd scrubbed it that morning. Not to restore it, but to remember it belonged to me. I left the office and called Alan. It's done, I said. Sale frozen. Escrow halted. Good, he said. Because the second motion you'll need is almost ready. Guardianship countersuit and a fraud claim. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. I drove straight to the utilities office. Requested termination of all services on both properties, gas, water, power. You're sure? The clerk asked. I own them both. The transfer is being disputed. Until it's settled, nobody gets to play house. She tapped at her keyboard. Done. Effective immediately. Then I drove to the property manager and revoked all access codes for the beach gate and side entrances. They'd stolen enough. Time to starve the castle. Back home, I arrived just in time to hear the sound of frustration. Mark was kicking the patio door. "It's locked," he hissed at my daughter. "Why isn't it opening? Try the code again." I did. I stepped up behind them, holding my coffee like a judge. I changed it. Mark turned, face red. "You're acting like a child." "No," I said. "I'm acting like a father who finally stopped being your wallet." My daughter stepped forward. "You shut off everything?" "Yes," I said. "The power? The water?" "Correct." "You can't do that," she cried. "I can, and I did." "You're putting the house in jeopardy." "No," I said. "You already did when you tried to sell it out from under me." She looked like she wanted to scream. Instead, she sat down on the porch step. "Dad, why are you doing this? We're your family." I stared at her for a long, cold second. "You stopped being my family the day you turned my wife's will into a profit plan." She didn't respond. Just sat there, hands trembling. Mark's phone buzzed. He answered. "Yeah. What do you mean the listing's suspended?" No, that's not possible. He can't just." I turned and walked inside. The house had never felt quieter. Never felt more mine. I placed the polished keychain back on its old hook by the garage, right where it belonged. For now. My phone rang again. Alan said, "They're pushing back hard. She just hired a new lawyer. And this one's ruthless. If someone drained your legacy behind your back, would you cut them off or give them one more chance?" The knock on my cabin door wasn't friendly, it came with a badge and a warning. It had been 2 days since I cut the power. The beach house sat dark on the bluff, windows like hollow eyes, empty and watchful. I'd stayed at my cabin upstate since the confrontation, needing space, but not silence. Silence was a liar. It made you think things had settled. Until a knock shook the door at 6:12 a.m. I opened it to find a police officer. Early 40s. Calm eyes. Crisp badge. "Mr. Harper?" "That's me. I need to speak with you regarding a complaint filed by your daughter." "Of course," I said. "Come in. Coffee?" He hesitated but nodded. Inside, I poured 2 mugs. "What's the complaint?" I asked, already knowing. "She claims you trespassed on her legal property, disabled utilities, and created a hostile living situation. Also said you were mentally unstable and possibly declining." I chuckled. Sounds rehearsed. He took a sip. "She also submitted documents claiming ownership of the house." I handed him a folder. Inside, the notarized deed, the fraud report, my wife's revised will, the revoked power of attorney filings, all marked, sealed, backed by Alan's firm. The officer took his time flipping through. "Okay," he said slowly. "This paints a very different picture." "She tried to erase me," I said. "But the ink isn't dry yet." "She also mentioned a history of emotional outbursts," he added. I smiled. "Do I look unhinged to you?" "No," he said. "But the law listens to paper, not personality." He stood and glanced around. "This place yours too?" "Built it myself," I said. "This one without help." He looked at the wall where I'd rehung the photo of the original house gate. The keychain was taped next to it, now protected behind a plastic sleeve, like evidence, or maybe a relic. "Nice key," he said. "Means more than they know." He paused at the door. You're within your rights for now. But they're pushing hard. What happens next? There's talk of getting a restraining order against you. My eyes narrowed. They try to ban me from my own land? He nodded. Sir, get ready. They want this to get messy. My phone buzzed the moment he left. Alan texting, they just filed for emergency possession. Hearings in 72 hours. By noon, I was back in town. Stopped at the diner to meet Cheryl. She looked up when I entered, wiping her hands on her apron. Heard the cops came, she said. Small towns don't keep secrets, I muttered. No, she said. They amplify them. She slid over a small package. Inside, photos. Mark, sitting at the cafe across town, speaking with a man in a sharp suit. The caption read, Ellison Park Law Group, Property Acquisition. They're prepping a hostile purchase, Cheryl whispered. They think I'll cave under pressure, I replied. You going to? I pulled the keychain from my coat, placed it on the table. No. I'm going to make them regret ever thinking I would. Later that day, I drove back to the beach house. Stayed in the car. Just watched. They were still there. Generator humming. Extension cord stretched from a neighbor's outdoor socket. Mark was on the porch, arguing with someone over the phone. My daughter paced behind him, arms crossed. Then she looked up. Saw me. Walked straight down the driveway. I rolled down the window. She didn't wait for an invitation. You're stalking us now? It's my property. Not for long, she hissed. We've filed for emergency possession. The judge will see what you've done, shutting off utilities, trespassing, threatening behavior. I didn't answer. So she kept going. You're going to lose, Dad. And when that happens, I'll make sure you never step foot on this land again. I reached into the glove compartment. Pulled out a flash drive. Give this to your lawyer, I said. It's my wife's last words. The real will. The real intent. Let's see if he still wants to represent you after hearing it. She took it reluctantly. You're desperate, she said. No, I said. I'm prepared. Then she said it. If you don't back off, we'll call the police. You already did, I replied. And they left without cuffs. She turned and walked back up the hill, fury in every step. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, the keychain dangling from the rearview mirror now. It swung slightly as the ocean breeze hit the window. Still mine. For now. Alan called, voice sharp. We found a loophole in their claim. But it requires you to make the next move, tomorrow. The open house sign read, New Listing, Beachfront Bliss. I ripped it out of the sand. Saturday was open house day. The email flyer arrived at 6:47 a.m., Beachfront Bliss, newly remodeled ocean view property. Walk through 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Attached were photos of my wife's second home. Fresh paint. Staged furniture. My daughter's name listed as the owner. They were going through with it. Despite everything. Despite the court filing. The frozen escrow. The forged papers. They thought a glossy flyer could rewrite reality. I got in the truck and drove like every second was a betrayal unfolding. When I arrived, cars already lined the bluff road. Realtors in polo shirts ushered strangers toward my memories. One couple posed in front of the garage like it was theirs. I stepped out. Walked to the sidewalk. And saw it. The sign. New listing, for 47A Ocean Vista. Agent, Morgan Harper. I yanked it out of the dirt and snapped the frame in half. Gasps followed. Phones came out. Then I walked through the open front door like I still belonged, because I did. Inside, candles were lit, fake flowers filled the vase, and a soft jazz track played on loop. My daughter stood at the kitchen island in a crisp blazer. Mark stood beside her, handing out brochures. He spotted me first. "Dad, you can't be here," he said, stepping forward. "She doesn't own this house," I said, loud enough for the room to still. "Sir," the realtor stammered. "This is a private showing." "No, it's not," I barked. "Because the woman on that flyer is committing fraud." People stopped browsing. I pulled a document from my jacket and placed it on the kitchen counter, the forensic report Alan delivered that morning. "This house is registered to a disputed estate. All transfers under investigation. Any buyer's proceeding will face title invalidation." My daughter flushed. Mark tried to snatch the paper. I stepped between them. "Touch it," I said, "and I'll call the police you were so eager to involve last week." A woman in a red dress whispered to her partner, "Wait, is this not her house?" "She said she inherited it," someone else said. "I thought it was his wife's place," another voice added. The mood shifted. The charm cracked. I pulled the keychain from around my neck, now newly cleaned and tied to a black ribbon, and placed it gently on the table beside the document. "See this gate?" I asked. "It's not decorative. It's real. I built it. I buried the foundation of this house before my daughter knew how to tie her shoes." Mark's voice shook. "He's bitter. He's being dramatic." I cut him off. "You used my wife's death to stage a property scam. You brought fake trustees. You submitted documents signed by a nurse we trusted." Murmurs rose. Even the realtor was backing away slowly. Then the surprise happened. The pastor walked in. Uninvited. Holding a folder. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "I was asked to bring this." He opened the folder and pulled out my wife's voice memo, printed transcript and notarized. He placed it on the island like a final sermon. "I heard her voice," the pastor said. "That house was never meant to be yours, Morgan." Now she was trembling. "Dad, please. You should have come to me," I said, softer now. "Instead of pretending your mother's silence meant permission." "You never included me," she shouted. "It was always her house, her memories, her shrine." "So you desecrated it?" I asked. "You turned it into a business listing?" She burst into tears. A couple quietly left the house, brochure tossed on the floor. Mark grabbed her elbow, trying to pull her back to the living room. But it was over. The image had shattered. Neighbors whispered. Phones captured everything. And no one was on their side anymore. The realtor's phone rang. He picked up, listened, then looked at Morgan. "You need to leave. The agency just pulled the listing. If your child stole your legacy and tried to sell your memories, would you forgive them, or expose everything like I did? Mr. Harper, we served the restraining order this morning. You now have full legal control of both properties." Alan wasn't the kind of man who celebrated victories. But when I walked into his office Monday morning, he greeted me with 2 cups of coffee and one thick, freshly stamped legal folder. "This is it," he said. "We filed the motion for exclusive ownership, and the court granted emergency injunction on all transfer activity. You now hold full legal control. Both properties. All deeds." He pushed the folder across the table. Restraining orders. Fraud affidavits. Motion to void guardianship petition. Revocation of power of attorney. Every page a nail sealing the coffin of their lies. "What about them?" I asked. Alan's tone dropped. "They'll receive notice by 10 a.m. If they try to re-enter either home after that, we'll have grounds to press charges." I sat in silence for a moment. Then slowly removed the keychain from my pocket, now polished, loop repaired, and placed it on Alan's desk. "It belongs with the truth," I said. Alan raised an eyebrow. "You should keep it," he said. "This whole thing started with a gate, didn't it?" "It'll end with one too," I said. By noon, the police served the documents. Mark and Morgan were escorted off the beach property. Neighbors watched. Phones recorded. One clip surfaced online, Morgan arguing with the officer, screaming, "He's weaponizing sympathy. He's using the dead to humiliate us." Another video showed Mark shoving a bag into the back of a rental car, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. The houses were silent again. No more tea parties on the deck. No more open houses. Just locked doors and memories refusing to be sold. I returned to the second house first, the one built for my wife. I stood in the empty living room, no furniture, no warmth, just ocean wind through cracked windows. I knelt at the fireplace and opened the sealed envelope she'd left me. Inside, her final letter. "If they ever try to take this place, let it go. Give it to someone who needs it more than we did. You'll know who." I folded the letter. Looked around. And finally understood what she meant. This house wasn't built for inheritance. It was built for restoration. The next morning, I visited the local sheriff. Filed a motion to initiate formal fraud investigation. "Will you testify?" the deputy asked. "I'll do more than that," I said. I returned home, to the original beach house, and retrieved the family photo wall. The center frame, once holding a picture of the four of us smiling in front of the gate, was now empty. I replaced it with a new image, the court-stamped deed, my wife's final words transcribed below it. "Legacy is not inherited. It is earned." By Thursday, Cheryl called me. "You might want to come down to the diner," she said. "They're back in town." When I walked in, every head turned. In the far booth, Mark and Morgan. She looked tired. Hair pulled back. Hands shaking around her coffee cup. Mark looked defeated, pale, cornered. I sat across from them without asking. "I hear you got the order," I said. Morgan nodded. Mark cleared his throat. "We want to talk." "No lawyers?" "No lawyers," she said. "Just truth." She placed a folded paper on the table. It was an apology. Handwritten. "I was wrong," she said. "I let ambition replace gratitude. I let his voice," she glanced at Mark, "be louder than Mom's memory. I didn't say anything." She slid another paper forward. "A check. Her savings. It's not much," she said. "But we'll pay back what we can." Mark finally spoke. "I lost my investors. My partners. My license may be suspended." I looked at both of them. Then took out the keychain, now hanging around my neck. They followed its swing. "This was never just a house," I said. "It was your mother's prayer turned into steel and wood. And you tried to flip it like a condo." "We know," Morgan said softly. "No," I replied. "You don't. But maybe someday, you will." I took the check. And slid back her apology letter. "Keep it," I said. "You'll need it more than I do." Then I stood. Paid for all 3 coffees. And walked out before they could say another word. That night, Alan called. "She just filed a new motion. This time, she's asking the court to speak with you directly." The voicemail came from a number I didn't know. "Mr. Harper, we're trying to reach your son-in-law. Where's our money?" When someone whispers the word fraud, they always mean money. Not trust. Not betrayal. Just unpaid debts, silent sharks circling until the blood hits the water. And it hit. That morning, I listened to a voicemail on repeat. This is Evergreen Finance. Mr. Harper, we're trying to reach your son-in-law regarding overdue payments. Please call us back before legal escalation. I didn't call back. Instead, I drove to town. Mark hadn't just tried to steal my house. He'd mortgaged everything behind my back, and now the walls were caving in. I found him at the auto shop downtown. Not fixing anything. Just standing near the vending machine, tie half undone, talking too fast into his phone. I'll make it right. No, don't freeze the line yet. I have funds coming in, I swear. He turned and saw me. His face dropped. He ended the call and shoved the phone in his pocket like it was made of fire. I need a minute, he said. No, you need a miracle, I replied. Don't start. I took a step forward. Where's the money, Mark? He didn't answer. So I repeated it, louder. Where's the money? A mechanic nearby looked up. Mark pulled me aside. It's complicated. No, I said. It's theft. Misuse. Embezzlement if we're being technical. You don't know what I was dealing with. Then explain it, I snapped. He sighed. I used the escrow as leverage. Private lenders. High interest. Short-term rollovers. It was supposed to flip quick. We list both houses, pull out profit, reinvest before the first balloon hits. And when that didn't happen? I asked. He looked away. I'm underwater. The lenders are calling. One already filed notice. The second's preparing to sue. I studied him. Sweat on his collar. The twitch in his jaw. That's what the collapse of ego looks like, slow, silent, and fully deserved. How much? He didn't answer. How much, Mark? $742,000. I whistled low. And that doesn't include court costs, he added quietly. Then he said the worst part. I used Morgan's name on some of the forms. I left him there, with a ruined tie and a hurricane behind his eyes. I didn't go home. I went to the bank. Asked to speak with the loan officer. Gave her the full legal file Alan had built. She scanned it carefully. Then nodded. We'll begin reversing unauthorized cosign transactions. And I'm obligated to tell you, there's a lien filing underway against your daughter's name. I nodded. Not with satisfaction. With sadness. She'd hitched her identity to a drowning man. And now, she was going down with him. Later that afternoon, I returned to the cabin. Opened the drawer where I kept my wife's original property blueprints. The keychain was still taped to the bottom, gate replica glowing gold under the desk lamp. I ran my thumb across it. And for the first time in months, I felt something that wasn't anger. I felt pity. Because Mark was collapsing. And Morgan was breaking. But neither of them had the courage to admit it. That evening, a knock came at my door. It wasn't a cop. It wasn't a lawyer. It was my daughter. She stood in the same spot the officer had stood just days ago, shoulders slouched, eyes sunken, holding nothing but a plastic grocery bag. Can I come in? I let her. She didn't sit. Just stood in the kitchen like she was waiting to be judged. Is it true? She asked. The lenders. The lien. Yes. And the fraud case? It's moving fast. She placed the bag on the counter. Inside, every photo she still had of our family. I thought I was fixing things, she whispered. I thought if I just made it profitable, I could keep your memory alive. No, I said. You wanted to bury your shame with a sale sign. She flinched. Then pulled something else from her coat. The apology letter. Crumpled. Read. Reread. Torn at the edge. I want to tell the judge the truth, she said. About the signatures. About the account. About everything. I nodded. I'm not doing it to win, she added. I'm doing it because I lost already. That was the first honest thing she'd said in months. Then she looked up at the photo on my desk. The one of me and her mother by the gate. The keychain was now framed below it, no longer a weapon. Just a memory reclaimed. You still wear that? She asked. Every day. She nodded. Then turned to leave. She stopped at the door and whispered, they're coming to take the car. Mark doesn't know. I'm just so tired, Dad. You want to say something? The pastor asked, mic in hand. It's your wife's memorial tree, we saved you the last word. The church courtyard was packed. Not for scandal this time, but for memory. My wife's 10-year memorial tree had finally matured, its roots deep in the soil outside the church she loved. They'd invited me to speak. I hadn't planned to. Until Morgan arrived. And stood beside the tree like it was hers. Camera crew behind her. A journalist nearby. She was trying to rewrite the narrative, again. Until the pastor stepped up and broke the silence. We're here today to remember a woman who gave her heart to this town. Who stood for dignity, resilience, and grace. And now, we invite her husband, Mr. Harper, to say a few words. I didn't want applause. I wanted truth. So I stepped up. Took the mic. And pulled the keychain from around my neck. The gold had dulled again. This time from salt. From use. From war. This, I said, holding it up, is not just a keychain. It's the only piece of metal I didn't let them melt down. Whispers. Phone cameras raised. I built the house behind that gate with my hands. My wife built the soul of it with her love. And when she died, she left that house untouched, for a reason. Morgan stiffened. Mark hovered behind her, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. They tried to turn it into profit. To erase my name. Forge documents. Sell off her legacy like yard furniture. Gasps. Murmurs again. She told me, in her last letter, give it to someone who understands legacy, not entitlement. I looked directly at Morgan. That was never yours. The crowd shifted. Not away from me, but away from her. Even the pastor stepped back. I continued. I've filed the paperwork to donate the second property, to the Veterans Housing Initiative. It will house 5 families. Each one a legacy in progress. Now the crowd murmured in awe. She was proud of this town, I said. I hope today, she still is. I stepped down. Left the keychain, not around my neck, but on the memorial plaque by the tree. Symbolic. Final. Earned. Outside, people whispered to Morgan. Not congratulations. But distance. Some stepped away. Some didn't make eye contact. One woman even asked, did you really fake the will? Morgan didn't answer. Mark had already walked to the car. I watched it unfold. Dignity, gone. Not because I screamed. But because I told the truth. Back at the cabin, Cheryl dropped off a copy of the local paper. From betrayal to legacy, father donates home after family scandal. The photo? Me. Standing beside the tree. The keychain glinting in the sun. Alan called that night. Local news is on your side now, he said. You've got every document filed. Your testimony's prepped. The judge won't ignore what's public anymore. And them? He paused. They're hiding. Mark's being sued by 2 lenders. Morgan withdrew her last motion. Quietly. I didn't say anything. I just looked at the wall. The framed gate photo now had a second image beside it, the tree, the plaque, and the keychain. Legacy wasn't a possession. It was a decision. And I'd finally made mine. A knock came that night. This time, it was Morgan. No camera. No lawyer. Just her, alone, asking, "Can we talk? Please, just as your daughter this time." The pen felt heavier than the hammer I once used to build that house, but this signature would do more damage than any tool ever could. We sat at the long table inside Alan's office. Across from me, the Veterans Housing Initiative Board, 3 quiet professionals in clean suits, each holding a folder marked with my wife's name. To my left, Alan. To my right, no one. Because this time, my daughter wasn't invited. This wasn't her story anymore. This was mine. And hers. I signed the deed with one slow, deliberate stroke. "You understand," Alan said gently, "once this is finalized, the Harper Bluff property is no longer tied to your family estate. You forfeit all inheritance claims." "Exactly," I said. "That's the point." I handed over the keychain, sealed inside a small wooden box. Same design. Newly engraved. Harper Legacy Home, built on honor, not entitlement. The youngest board member opened it and whispered, "You really built the whole thing yourself?" I smiled. Every nail. An hour later, the donation became public. Local news broke the story. Beachfront Estate donated 2 veterans in honor of late wife, legal feud ends with father's defiant gift. The final twist? It was irreversible. I'd filed a symbolic clause: if the property was ever reclaimed or sold, all proceeds would go to widow and orphan funds. There was no way back in. Not for Mark. Not for Morgan. Not even for me. Legacy wasn't locked. It was released. That night, I received 2 voicemails. The first, from Morgan. "I saw the news. I get it now. You were never protecting the house. You were protecting what it meant. I'm sorry." The second, from Mark. "You humiliated me. You ruined my name. But you won't have her forever. I'll get her back. You'll be alone again." He still didn't get it. I didn't win her back. I won myself back. 2 days later, I returned to the beach one final time. Walked to the house I'd once sworn to die in. Now, the locks had changed. Not by me, but by the organization. I had no key. And that was exactly as it should be. On the front porch, a construction crew was already measuring for ramps, bunk beds, community kitchens. A boy, maybe 10, ran up the steps, grinning. His mother followed, holding a veteran's ID. "I'm so sorry," she said when she saw me. "We didn't know someone would still be here." I smiled. "This house was waiting for you," I said. She frowned. "You built it, didn't you?" I nodded. Her son looked at me. "Are you famous or something?" "No," I said. "Just a man who remembered what mattered. A little too late." The final revenge wasn't the paperwork. It wasn't the public fallout. It wasn't even the forfeiture. It was the silence. The fact that no one would ever knock on that door again demanding ownership. Because no one owned it anymore. It belonged to something bigger. And that, Mark would never understand. Later that evening, Cheryl poured me my usual coffee. "You look like a man who finally put down a shovel," she said. "I buried the past," I replied. "And?" "It didn't come back up." I stood, paid my tab, and walked out. Back at the cabin, I lit a small fire. Sat with the gate photo in one hand. The new photo, the veteran family walking through my wife's garden, in the other. I burned the old blueprint. Not out of anger. But because I didn't need the map anymore. The destination had already been reached. A letter arrived that night. No return address. Inside, a check. $4,762, Morgan Savings. With a note, I didn't deserve to inherit the house. But I want to help rebuild one somewhere else. They stood in the rain outside my cabin, no car, no suitcases, just desperation in their eyes and a single line from her lips, "Please, we have nowhere to go." It was late when I heard the knock. Not firm. Not demanding. Just, soft. Almost embarrassed. I opened the door to find them both standing there, soaked from head to toe. Morgan clutching her elbows. Mark standing behind her, silent, shivering. No car. No umbrella. Just them. And rain. "Please," she said, voice cracking. "We have nowhere to go." I stared at them. Not with anger. With disbelief. "You burned every bridge," I said. "Why come back here?" Mark didn't speak. Not once. Morgan looked me in the eyes. Really looked. "I know," she said. "We deserve nothing. But I'm not here for the house. I'm not here for deeds or power. I'm here because I failed. And you're the only person I've ever known who didn't run when something broke." I stepped aside. Let them in. Not because I forgave. Because I remembered what mercy used to feel like. They sat on opposite ends of the couch. Didn't touch. Didn't speak. Just soaked in silence. I handed them each a blanket. Hot tea. No words yet. Finally, Morgan spoke. "We lost everything." "Good," I said. "Maybe now you'll learn what something costs." "I deserve that." "You deserve worse," I snapped. "But you're here. Which means maybe you're still trying to deserve better." She nodded. Then pulled something from her pocket. The letter. Same one she'd written weeks ago. Now folded, reread, softened by time. She slid it across the table. "I rewrote it," she whispered. "It's not an apology for the property. It's an apology for trying to become something I'm not." I opened it. Read every word. Then folded it shut. "It's not forgiveness," I said. "But it's a start." Mark finally spoke. "I don't expect a second chance." "You won't get one," I said. "You get shelter. Nothing more." He nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't ask. Just nodded. That night, I watched them from the hallway. Two people who once thought they ruled a kingdom. Now curled on a couch that wasn't theirs. Wrapped in blankets that weren't theirs. In a house they didn't build. My cabin was humble. No granite countertops. No ocean views. But it had walls. And sometimes, that's more than enough. The next morning, Morgan stood by the photo of the gate. Her finger traced the frame. "The tree," she whispered. "It's beautiful." "She would have liked it," I said. She turned. "I'm not asking for your blessing. Or your approval. But, if there's a way I can earn my place again, even if it takes years, I'll try." I looked at the table. At the framed keychain now resting beneath glass. "No keys left," I said. "That chapter's sealed." "I know. But there's still a road." She nodded. We walked outside together. Rain had stopped. But the ground was still wet, soft, heavy, honest. She took one step forward. Then stopped. "Do you think she'd forgive me?" "She'd pray for you," I said. "Forgiveness takes longer." Then I handed her something small. Not a key. A stone. Smooth. From the bluff. The one her mother used to carry in her pocket every time she walked along the shoreline. She called it her anchor, I said. Morgan took it with both hands like it might disappear. Then said something I hadn't heard in years. Thank you, Dad. I nodded. Didn't smile. But inside, something settled. Not repaired. Not forgotten. But settled. As for Mark? He left quietly 2 days later. Left a note on the table. I was never good enough for your daughter. I proved it. I'm starting over. Away from her, away from you. No more games. No more masks. It wasn't redemption. But it was clarity. And that's sometimes all a man can offer on his way out. That night, Morgan helped me clear the fireplace ash. We worked in silence. But not awkwardly. She found rhythm. And I found breath. As we shut the lights, she looked at the wall and whispered, I'm not asking for a key, Dad, just the chance to stay close to the gate. The crowd gathered not for a scandal this time, but for a dedication. Still, I knew the whispers would return as soon as they saw what I was holding in my hand. The dedication ceremony was small. No reporters. No realtors. Just families, veterans, their kids, a few neighbors, the pastor, and the build team from the Veterans Housing Initiative. The beach house stood behind us, painted fresh, now with a flag mounted above the porch, and a wooden sign that read, Harper Legacy Home, in memory of Grace Harper, for those who served. It wasn't about me anymore. But it started with me. I was asked to say a few words. I didn't prepare a speech. I just pulled the keychain from my pocket, now sealed in resin, mounted on a plaque. This gate, I began, was once a boundary. A wall. A line between what I built and what others wanted. But today, it's a threshold. A welcome sign. A promise. The pastor stepped beside me and said, and where does the key belong now? I held up the plaque. And with steady hands, placed it inside a carved niche beneath the front step. It clicked gently into place. The key belongs where the truth lives, I said. And truth never needed locks. Behind me, I felt movement. I turned. Morgan stood just past the crowd. No microphone. No stage. Just her hands folded in front of her chest. And then, something remarkable happened. She stepped forward, cleared her throat, and said, I was born in a house I thought I'd inherit. The crowd turned. But what I didn't inherit was what my father carried, the burden, the sacrifice, the hours no one saw. I tried to take the reward without earning the pain. I failed. Publicly. Completely. She turned to me. I'm not here today as an heir. I'm here as a witness. This home belongs to honor, not blood. And then she stepped back. That was all. But it was enough. People clapped. Not loud. Not for spectacle. Just a soft wave of respect, moving like tide over rock. Later, she joined me on the bench overlooking the bluff. You didn't have to let me come, she said. You didn't have to show up, I replied. She smiled faintly. I've applied to volunteer here. Veteran support. Gardening. Meals. I nodded. That's a better way to earn your place than a deed. She turned to me, eyes misted. I never wanted to erase Mom. I know, I said. You just forgot how she built things. Then I stood. And reached into my coat. Pulled out a second keychain, a replica I'd carved myself, from driftwood. Not metal. Not locked. I handed it to her. No doors attached, I said. But the gate's always open. Her hands trembled as she took it. No words. Just the kind of silence that makes peace. Weeks passed. Mark never returned. No more lawsuits. No more paperwork. Just quiet. The town forgot the drama, but they remembered the dedication. Neighbors began referring to me again as Mr. Harper, not that man with the family mess. The diner changed their menu board. Item number 9, the legacy breakfast. 2 eggs. Toast. No sides. Cheryl winked every time I ordered it. One afternoon, I sat in the cabin, looking at the wall. There were now 3 photos. Me and my wife at the original gate. Morgan, placing the wooden keychain beside the veteran's mailbox. A group of kids playing in the yard of the house I gave away. No silver. No granite. Just faces. Just stories. And that was more than any inheritance. The keychain's journey had ended. But its meaning had only just begun. Because it proved one thing. You can lose a house. You can lose a name. But if you guard the truth, if you hold the gate long enough, they'll stop trying to take what was never theirs to begin with. The plaque shimmered as the sun hit it, the key belongs where the truth lives. And for once, there was no one left trying to take it.